Good morning, everybody. Well, depends where you are, I suppose. I'm in the UK, as you've probably gathered to my English accent. um, it's been a difficult time of late. We've had lots of different celebrations or whatever, to go through, haven't we? And of course, they are difficult times we're living in. So, this is not a cheer up video, but it's one that's going to help me. It might help somebody else. Only it's a very sensitive subject, and I thought I need to talk about it because it clears the air, and I think people do need to know that truth is very, very important. The video is entitled "Thou shalt not bear false witness," which I think is the ninth commandment, and it doesn't mean you shouldn't lie or deceive or gossip or whatever. And it's a very tricky area, isn't it? I did read somewhere that most people lie several times a day. My path is the path of truth, and believe me, it's really, really difficult because there are times you really do want to tell a fib, and I'm sure I do from time to time. I'm not being that's not holier than thou, but generally I have struggled to stay with the truth and to have truth from other people, and it's caused me a lot of pain because people don't want the truth. And I did read somewhere recently that no one more hated than somebody who represents the truth, because people are afraid of the truth. They hide behind lies. And the man friend that I had he could lie for England. So the story is not about him, it is about him in a way, but it's more about a situation I found myself in which did shock me deeply. He was somebody that lived next door to me for a while. I have mentioned him before, and we had this sort of, well, wasn't romantic. It was, I can't use the word, but just a sexual relationship, which was fine really. But neither of us really wanted a close relationship. We'd been married a long time, and eventually, I know he went astray. I won't go into that, but he did go astray, spent thousands of pounds that I got blamed for. But eventually he had a stroke, and at 72, obviously he couldn't sort of do that for very long. Um, Not good for his body, I shouldn't have thought. And he eventually had a stroke and went into a care home. I used to go and visit. In fact, I saved his life. I was with him while he had the stroke. I used to go and visit him quite frequently, and got friendly with some of the residents there and some of their visitors. And there was one visitor in particular, a Chinese man or Chinaman, and we just got on very well chatting and stuff. And he said, when you're around my area, pop in for a chat. And it was a few miles away, a seaside resort, and when I was passing his house, I thought, oh, I will pop in for a cup of tea and a chat. And he was very receptive. His place was an absolute tip, and of course his wife was in the care home. And we chatted for a while, and he began to tell me about his his days in China, visiting brothels and ladies of the night. And I sat and listened for a while, and I think he finally, the penny dropped. He looked at me, he said, oh, he said, you're not a prostitute. Can you imagine how I felt? I said, oh no, I mean, I laughed it off. I should have said more really. How did you think? Why did you think that? And it was just a peculiar situation. I thought, what made him? I mean, I was a certain age then, that I thought, well, some men do like old ladies, I know that, older ladies, but it was such a shock that he assumed from my very brief visits in the care home to visit my friend that this is who I was. And it suddenly occurred to me, there was one of the carers, she was telling me about how she met her man friend, and it was a little bit raunchy. I thought, why is she telling me this personal stuff? And suddenly everything fell into place, and I thought, my God, they all think I'm a prostitute. And I know where it came from. This man friend's son. The man friend was obviously in trouble with spending his thousands of pounds. The family found out, and I'm still not sure how much he told the son or how much it was the son's idea, but somehow the son got the impression that I was a prostitute, and he was telling everybody in the care home. Now I know that is it slander or libel, one of the two, hard to prove it. I did actually ask, and he must have made notes, but it got into the whole thing it was a vast event situation. He'd been to 2 or 3 care homes, and I wondered why they treated me strangely. They were all thinking the same thing. The son was telling, he was a right gossip. This is it, false witness, and he was telling everybody that I was the prostitute. I think, I'm not sure the real one visited. I think he did have a special lady friend, and I think there were times when I got some very shifty looks from the carers, and I didn't know what was going on. And it did occur to me, just not long after that, that, you know, I was being thought of as this lady of the night. I mean, well, of course you can't tell by looking at somebody, but I, I'm speechless thinking about it. I mean, where did they? It was the son, definitely the son. Now, whether the son believed that or not, I don't know. Whether he was just trying to cause trouble. He didn't like me anyway for obvious reasons. But his father was obviously vascular dementia. You couldn't believe, even when he wasn't unwell, when I first met him, he was a game player, a shady character, and an abuser of women. So you could never be sure of what he said. He was a gossip, a real gossip to anybody in a skirt, anyone in a skirt. He wouldn't talk to me because he really didn't have anything to say. In fact, most of the time he said to me, I've got nothing to say. And we were having a sexual relationship. And of course, it occurred to me that he was paying thousands of pounds to these girls and getting it for free from me. Clever man, yes. But the fact that to tell him, and I think he was trying to cover his back, he was obviously having girls that going out at night or whenever. I know exactly what he was doing. You know, he'd make a phone call, then he'd go chasing off in the afternoon for lunch somewhere with a girl with a little suitcase with all the things in it. It's a vast subject. I used to ring them up sometimes and find out who they were and where. I went on a completely obsessive compulsive trip. It was really, and I got through thousands of clairvoyants ringing up, finding out what was going on. I used to follow him around in my car. I look back on those days and I think, what on earth was I doing? But it's a woman thing. I think you just have to find out, and I never did find out the truth. And this false witness, there were so many people, it caused me a great deal of pain. And had I known perhaps more at the time, I would have taken him to court. But you see, he wasn't well. I don't think he wasn't compos mentis. I don't think anyone would have believed him. But I did challenge the care home owners. 4 Seasons they were called in Lincolnshire. They were all over the country actually, and I got the boss to come down and have a chat, but he wouldn't let me say it. He denied it. They must have made notes. Of course they must. They make notes every day. Put my glasses on a minute, see how long I've done. They make notes every day about what's happened and what's not happened, and I couldn't really challenge him because I think originally it did come from him, because I know when he was living next door, he had a girlfriend then, and I rang his son and he refused to speak to me about it, but I did know there was something going on then, and for some reason, I think I've mentioned this in a previous video, I let it go. It was just sex, you know. I mean, a lot of men, that's what they do, you know, my experience. It doesn't mean anything. It's just a fling, you know, a way to get rid of your money without any emotion. But then he got a special girlfriend, and that's when I began to really think, well, what am I doing here? You know, what am I doing? And I don't know if I forgave it. I sort of just accepted that was it. But then, of course, when it got nasty, and he began to say I was the prostitute, which he was doing, because his family challenged him about the money he was getting through. He said Beth had it, you know. Very convenient. And I didn't know. I think this is what hurts the most, is when people are lying about you, they're not going to tell you. And unfortunately, the world believes a lie. My spiritual master Mirage, he says that. He said, without a lie, the world doesn't work. Without the truth, spirit doesn't. And this is so true. I mean, the world, we all know, politicians, bankers, you know, everything is a lie. Everything is cover-up, it's deceit, it's about money and power and everything. So we're used to it. But what amazes me is that people will believe a lie and yet you could stand there and tell them the truth. They don't want to know. There's so much in this consciousness of deception and believing the worst of people that they believe what they're told. So all these carers, and they would go in there all bright and breezy, you know, and shifty. I used to have very shifty looks, and I couldn't understand it at the time that they didn't. I wasn't a wife, you see, and in care homes you're not acknowledged. If you're nobody, you're not told anything, you're not given care plans, you're nobody, because you're not a wife, you're not marriage material. You're considered the significant other, but the carers look at you as though you are an intruder. No matter how much you care, in fact I saved the man's life twice, no matter how much you care, how much you give, if you don't come up to their expectations and if you're considered somebody, prostitute. I'm laughing because I do wonder why I laugh so much. I think it is a ridiculous situation. So anyway, thou shalt not bear false witness. Try not to, you know. And if people tell you things, this is the thing. I mean, the world's full of gossip, isn't it? And people believe it. I mean, Mr. Trump, he's the centre of all this. He loves it. But I think it's a game, it's drama, isn't it? It's drama. People will say anything about anybody to get attention, forgetting that the person they're talking about is going to be very unhappy and cry in their soup, you know, because we don't like being lied about. And I wish now what I had done, though it was a bit late really, had I challenged them and said, look, let's sit down and talk about it. I did send an email, or a letter rather, to the son, but he wasn't interested, obviously. He didn't want to hear from me. But it should have been sorted out, I think, at the time, because it was unfair on me, spending my time and my love and energy looking after this man, taking him cakes and ale and, you know, taking him out in my car and buying him books and stuff, you know. It was a very difficult time for me, but to be criticised for that as well was just a bit too much, and I still haven't really dealt with it. So it is about the difference between lies and truth, and the lies aren't always very obvious. So when someone starts talking about somebody, you know, check it out. At least check it out. Don't sit there, the mouth open. Oh, really? You know, because the person involved, it is illegal, actually. And of course this son was committing a legal offence, but I couldn't prove it. I asked the people who were making notes, they wouldn't tell me. There is something called something of information, I forget what it's called now, and you can check it out. But I was tired, I was old. Older. In a way, I suppose it was not a compliment exactly, but to be thought of as that. I know one day I turned up in a lovely red dress, and one of the nurses, oh, he'll like that. And I thought, I can go over stuff over and over in my mind thinking, why didn't I realise at the time? Glasses on again. Gosh, it's 12 minutes, I must stop chatting. Anyway, there we go, folks. It might surprise you. You must think I'm very odd talking about this sort of stuff, but it has helped me in a way, because it's good to release these things that build up, isn't it? And get them out into the air, then they can go. So on that note, I might think of the money I could have earned. My goodness me, think of the money. That's another story. Anyway, dear ones, I'm going to go now, and thank you for listening. Take care of yourselves. God bless for now then. Bye-bye.